Hey y'all, welcome back. My name is Tiara and I am the owner of Black Teacup. In this week's video, I'm going to be showing you guys how I created this travel tumbler. I made this for a very good friend of mine earlier this year, probably back in April. And when I first made it, I made it using cardstock, but this is actually removable vinyl. The process is very easy, not too hard. If you have any questions, you can let me know down in the comment section below. I will have everything else linked in the description box below. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell so that you're notified every time I post a new video. And let's go ahead and get started. Thanks. So one more thing, guys. You probably noticed the inside of my cup. I have not yet cleaned the inside yet, but I'm going to do that, and then the cup will be 100% finished. But for the sake of this video, I just went ahead and did my final layer of epoxy, and I'm going to show you guys how I did it. Let's go. Alright, so for this tumbler, we are starting out with a 15-ounce skinny. I have already sanded the tumbler and wiped it down. So as I stated in the intro, I'll be using removable vinyl this time. I found it to be a lot easier than using cardstock, and I did purchase this vinyl at Hobby Lobby. So I kind of just wrapped it around my cup so I can get measurements and cut it down to the right size. So what I'm doing is making a slight crease, and then I'm going to grab my scissors and make a small little incision or a small cut so I'll know where I need to cut my vinyl. And then I'm going to do the same thing going the other way as well. So I'm making a small little snip. I'll remove my cup and get my paper cutter so that I can cut these lines straight. And I'm just going to line it up where I put those little slits. Then you'll do the same thing with the other slit that you made. Once you have everything cut out, you'll have like a smaller rectangle. And it should wrap around your cup perfectly. So I'm going to grab my cup here and just, line it up before I actually stick it on there to make sure I cut it the right way. And because my cup is a straight skinny, there's no taper, and it wraps around perfectly. My cup kept rolling away, so I had to get some type of towel to set it on. So here I'm going to take about 1 inch of the backing of the vinyl off, and I'm going to cut it. That way we're working in small sections at a time. I wouldn't suggest taking off all the backing at one time. It could become a problem or an issue. Everything will be sticking everywhere. So I always just take off about 1 inch, and then you want to line it up. Now this vinyl is removable vinyl, so I was able to set it down and pick it up as needed to get my placement right. This is important to make sure you have it on there straight, because when you wrap it all the way around, the ends should meet together. If it's not meeting together, that means that you don't have it lined up straight. So here I am testing it out before I take the rest of my backing off. And as you can see, everything is lined up perfectly. So I'm going to fold the paper backing back and use my hand on the underside to press and smooth out the vinyl as I adhere it to the cup. Doing it this way will help eliminate bubbles under your vinyl. And so you're just going to do this all the way around until you are done adhering the entire piece of vinyl to your cup. Just rub it and smooth it out if you have bubbles. If you do have bubbles that you can't get out, don't worry. You can pop those afterwards, but try to put it on as smooth as possible. So I have my backing completely off now, and I'm noticing that the bottom of my cup where the vinyl is not laying smooth. So I'm taking my hand and pressing it down, but if I could have done it differently, I would have cut it a little bit shorter so that it didn't come down as far. But it's okay. There's a remedy for that. I'm going to take my X-Acto knife, and I'm going to lay it flat on the table or my desk, whatever. And I'm going to roll my cup, kind of press my cup against that knife and go all the way around. It'll cut that vinyl in a smooth, even line for you. That way, I don't have to worry about the bottom of the vinyl creasing and epoxy getting underneath it, and it's not sealed properly. So this is just a quick little fix. If you did cut your vinyl too long, you'll just take your X-Acto knife, lay it flat on a table, and run your cup all the way around it. And then you'll be able to peel off that excess little piece. And it's okay that you have stainless steel exposed at the top and the bottom, and you will see why. So we're going to go ahead and put the glitter on our cup using the epoxy method, and this will serve as two purposes. One, we are sealing our vinyl to our cup, so I'm going to focus on those edges, make sure my epoxy is nice and smooth all the way around the rim and the bottom. And I'm also going to add my glitter on this step as well with the epoxy method. If you recall, the epoxy method is using less than 5 ml of epoxy, and I'm just spreading it all the way around my cup in a nice thin layer. So for this cup, I will be using Athena by Peachy Olive Glitters, and I am just going to go across the rim of my cup, maybe like 1/4 of an inch solid glitter across the rim. And then I'm going to tilt my cup and let the glitter fall down the sides of the cup. And it's a very, very slight tilt. I don't have my cup up and down because you don't want the glitter to fall too far down. I mean, you can if you want. You do whatever you want to on your cup. But for this cup, what I'm doing, I don't want the glitter to go down too far. And then I'm going to do the same exact thing with the bottom. So I'm going to glitter at the bottom of my cup and the bottom rim. And then I'm going to slightly tilt it and let the glitter fall down slightly down the sides. Once you have your cup glittered the way you want it, you can let it dry. I usually let mine dry overnight before moving on to the next step. Alright, so next we're going to apply epoxy to our cup and cover that glitter. We want to get everything sealed in, and we want to get everything nice and smooth before we move on to our decals. So for this cup, I probably used about 30 ml of epoxy. You just want to apply that right on top of that glitter. I did not spray seal my cup before applying epoxy. We're just going to get everything nice and smooth before we move on to decals. And at this point, this was the next day, my cup was still a little rough, so I went right back in with another coat of epoxy to smooth things out a little bit more before we go on to sanding. You don't want to start sanding until you have enough epoxy built up on that cup, because you don't want to sand into your vinyl or your glitter. Then you want to use your torch to pop any bubbles. That will help for a nice smooth finish of your epoxy as well. So I always use my torch. And I'm not sure about you guys, but I always babysit my cups. I'll come back and check on it every 20 minutes or so. Make sure there's no pulling at the rim or at the bottom. So I'll run my finger across the top and I'll run my finger across the bottom. I think you can only do this for about like the first hour or so, because once your epoxy starts to get hard, you don't want to touch it anymore. So while my epoxy is still wet, I'll go and check on it. So I will let this cup cure for a day or two before moving on to sanding. And here is our cup. It's nice and smooth for the most part, but we still have a little sanding to do. I'm going to take my rotary sander and go across the rim of my cup to expose a very fine line of stainless steel. This will allow for a smoother finish. And this is something that I do with all of my cups now. I do use my rotary sander for this step. You can use your hand and use a block sander. That works as well too. But I do not miss this step ever anymore. So you're just going to go all the way around. You'll know when you've met the other side because you'll see the stainless steel line. And then after this part, I will take a block sander or a piece of sanding paper and sand around the rest of my cup. Just in case there's any like sharp spots or bumps, you just want your cup to be as smooth as possible. And when you're working with chunky glitter, there's a good chance that you're going to have some bumps or rough spots. So it's very important to sand your cup if you want to get that nice smooth finish. After I've sanded my cup all the way around, I'll wipe it down with alcohol and wash it with Dawn dish soap. And then we are ready for decals. So I cut this decal out using my Silhouette Cameo. I'm finding the spot where I want it. So if you remember, our vinyl has a seam in the back. So I use that seam for the name, but you can use it for whatever you want. So I found the opposite side of my cup without the seam, and that's where I'm going to put my quote. And here I am once again struggling with my transfer tape. I have not found a good transfer tape yet. So this one is not sticking enough, and then I have some that are way too sticky. So if you have any recommendations for transfer tape, let me know in the comments below. Once I have everything pulled up on my transfer tape, I am going to eyeball my decal on my cup. So you see that seam there, that's for the name. And I'm going to go to the opposite side and lay my decal. Now I can't do this with the cup laying down, so I'll normally set the cup up first. So you're going to see the cup disappear from the scene briefly. I just need to make sure that everything's lined up perfectly. Once I have it where I want it to be, I'll press from the middle and work my way out. You want to try to lay your vinyl as smooth as possible. Try to avoid air bubbles. But yeah, just smooth it out as you lay it down. Peel back your transfer tape, and if you were adding a name, you could do that at this point. But for this particular cup, I'm not adding any names, and we are ready for our final layer of epoxy, hopefully. I let my decals sit for probably a couple hours before applying the epoxy. I did not seal my decals. You can if you need extra reassurance, or what you could do is take a fingertip full of epoxy and just rub it on those decals. Let that sit for like 4 hours, and that will ensure that those decals will not peel up. You don't need a lot, just a very little bit to rub across those decals, or any decals for any cup that you're using. You can use epoxy to make sure it sticks. And then you would just go right back in with your flood coat of epoxy or your normal coat of epoxy. But yeah, I've never had issues with my vinyl peeling when doing it that way. And y'all already know what's next. We have to go in with our torch to pop any bubbles. And let's just hope that everything turns out smooth. And that was it, y'all. Here's the final cup. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. If you have any questions, I'm here to help. Thanks for watching. Also, don't forget to join us over on Facebook at Black Teacup Community. We do giveaways, behind the scenes, and early access to some products. Thanks.